All right, this is Unit 7, Lesson 5. I'm just going to go over the do now and how it connects to the guided practice for this unit. And the first thing I'm going to say is I would recommend that when your volunteers are going through the slide, that they're making the pop culture references that are meaningful to them or your students or both. So I think that's a lot more fun. So if you have a class that doesn't connect to Rick and Morty or a volunteer that doesn't connect to Rick and Morty, then the lesson's not as fun, and it's not trivial, but easy enough to change out the image here to something that students might connect with more, like Shrek or whatever is popular by the time you're delivering this lesson. So the directions are telling us that we're inside of the click handler, and we're going to save the value of the user's input by selecting its class to a new variable named message. So I'm making my variable called message, and I'm going to store the value from the input using the class. So I'm checking for input, and the class is called speech. So I'm using dot speech here. And then I'm just going to check it. I like to check things, make sure they're working. And it worked. So now I can move on to step 2. In step 2, I want to make the text from the input field appear in the speech bubble with the class of speech bubble. So I'm going to select the class speech bubble, and then I'm going to use dot text and add the message there. And it works. Woohoo! So now in the guided practice, we're asked to append to this section called history. And so what that's going to look like is pretty similar. Instead of selecting speech bubble, I'm going to select the class history, and instead of using text, I'm going to use append. And if we want to, we could even add it inside of a p tag. But for now, let's just see what it's going to do. So my favorite quote from Rick, there we go. And so it's showing up on the same line. And so now we're going to talk about how to use string interpolation to have it show up in a p tag every time we append it to the page. So with string interpolation, we're going to be using these backtick characters, which you can find above the tab. And then we're going to take variables and we're going to put them in the syntax of $ and curly brackets. And then what we can do here is before our message, we can add an opening p tag. And after our message, we can add a closing p tag. I think this is really valuable because it's a little bit easier than using the plus symbol. It's one of the features of ES6 that we wanted to roll out to students this year because I think it's a little bit more intuitive, and that's why they introduced it in the newest version of the programming language. So let's see what it does here. So we have my favorite Rick Sanchez quote, and it looks a little bit more clean. The other thing we can do here is if I wanted to add this to my message, I can add it in this way because Rick is very gassy and he belches a lot. And so I could try it this way. So now it adds to whatever Rick is saying here. And so that's kind of a nice thing about using the string interpolation is that it helps us to add to our messages a little bit more. So this is how we are combining .append and string interpolation to add on to things we learned in the last lesson, like .val and .text. These methods are really handy. That's all I got for you.